I think that is problematic is to suggest that, number one, that transgender athletes are the biggest problem in women's sports. And I think this is what's bothersome, is that there's a faction of people in our country that are making this a massive...
You are Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx. That is an irresponsible thing to do. You are a coach for a female basketball team. Do you not think that the females are being screwed over if they have to compete against a individual born as a male? What are you talking about?
Obviously bringing Juliet over to the WNBA.
Yeah, would that be fair?
Listen, yes, it would be fair if a team from the WNBA believes that Juliet can help the team. Could he? I should say, I'm going to say he, by the way, because that's exactly what he is. Yeah, probably. But at the end of the day, right now, the WNBA consists primarily of women who have come through the traditional route, which is the WNBA draft.
Cheryl Reeve is back in the headlines, and this time, critics say her past comments are raising some serious questions. On one hand, Reeve has spoken about protecting opportunities for women in WNBA coaching and front office roles. On the other, her views on who should be welcomed into women's sports have sparked a very different debate. Now, with Julie Tarter reportedly being discussed as a potential fit for the IndianaFever, the spotlight is getting even brighter. The big question is simple. Does Reeve's welcoming stance remain the same when the situation involves a dominant player outside her own roster?
My views, as I said last week, I come from a space of inclusion.
All right, so right out of the gate, she frames herself as the compassionate one. And we know this is one of the oldest persuasion techniques that there is. Before she answers the question, she defines herself as inclusive, which immediately implies that anyone who disagrees must be coming from a place of exclusion. But here's the problem. The WNBA is an exclusionary league. Women's basketball exists because it excludes males. So inclusion isn't the issue. The issue is who is eligible for the female category.
And the narrative that I think that is problematic is to suggest that, number one, that transgender athletes are the biggest problem in women's sports. And that,
doing what everyone else does, notice that she changes the question. Nobody asked whether this is the biggest problem. That's a straw man. The real question is much simpler. Should males be eligible for women's sports? And she never answers that.
Cheryl Reeve has made one thing clear. She says she's fighting for greater opportunities for women in the WNBA. Reeve has argued that men have increasingly taken over positions that women worked for decades to earn, not on the court, but in coaching staffs, front offices, and other leadership roles. It's a strong and outspoken position, one that puts her firmly behind expanding women's representation throughout the league. But that stance has also opened the door to a much bigger debate about how the WNBA defines opportunity, leadership, and inclusion.
This is the reason why so many people, they're trying to take the WNBA seriously and they can't, because every day it's another narrative, it's another person pushing an agenda, it's another person trying to combat what another person says. Cheryl Reeves, you are 2 months away from being 60 years old. What the hell is this? Kathy needs to suspend you. This is terrible from you as a coach. You know better. Why are you blowing up something that's already out there? Something that people do not need to be focusing on, but to focus on the game.
But here's where the controversy gets more complicated. Critics point to what they see as a tension in Cheryl Reeve's position. She has argued strongly for protecting women's opportunities in WNBA leadership roles, while also supporting a more inclusive approach to participation in the league. That distinction matters because one debate concerns coaching and front office jobs, while the other concerns eligibility to compete on the court. Whether those positions are truly contradictory or reflect two different ideas about fairness and inclusion is now becoming a major part of the conversation.
because exclusion is never the answer. Separate isn't equal. And trans lives matter. And so to take away something so valuable that sports brings to young people in particular, and what it does, as I have a youngster, and encourage them to be a part of a team, and what it gives you in the way of, whether it's teamwork, leadership, competitive, all the things, they have every right to that as well.
So the question critics are asking is straightforward. Where does Cheryl Reeve draw the line? If her concern is that women are losing opportunities to men, they argue that the same principle should be applied consistently across the league. Reeve can support greater opportunities for women in coaching and leadership while also holding a different view on player eligibility, but critics see a tension between those positions. To them, it raises questions about whether the message changes depending on whether she's speaking at a podium or standing courtside.
And this is what I keep talking about when I say we live in a backwards society. Sophie Cunningham, a WNBA player, one of the most notable WNBA players in the league now, is trying to defend women's rights. And the same women she's trying to defend are attacking her. Because it doesn't matter what you're trying to do. It doesn't matter what you mean by it. All it looks like is you support Trump. And these women have Trump derangement syndrome. They don't understand that you're making women's sports safer and fair so that they don't have to get in the ring and box a man. So they don't have to spend their entire life training to be beaten by a man who wasn't good enough to play in the NBA. Like, so she's doing what she can to protect the sanctity of the sports that she loves. And you guys are attacking her for it. That is the craziest, most backward shit I have ever seen or heard, bro. I've never heard anything like this. So you don't want fair sports for women?
Sophie Cunningham made her position clear months ago. She believes women's sports should remain centered on women's competition, a view that sparked a major public backlash and confrontation. At the same time, Cheryl Reeve has spoken forcefully about the need to protect women's opportunities within the WNBA, including concerns about men taking coaching and leadership positions. Critics now point to those separate statements and argue that they reveal an inconsistency in how fairness and opportunity are being discussed. Whether that amounts to hypocrisy or simply reflects two different issues has become a major point of debate.
It's primarily of women who have come through the traditional route, which is the WNBA draft. Only about 15 of the 200 players in the WNBA have come from outside leagues in other countries. So it isn't a common practice. What I don't want the WNBA to do is to go over and say, okay, we will prove what we're saying here and bring them over just because they're trying to silence the critics. That's not the reason to do it, honestly. I mean, you can listen to social media all you want, but that's not if he can truly help a team, certainly go do it. And then everybody would certainly be able to say, all right, they're putting their money where their mouth is. They don't need to do that. They don't need to do that right now. So I don't believe it would happen. And even if they wanted to, that's the question. Would they actually do it? I don't believe, ladies, that they would do it because we know what would happen. We know the differences between men and women, and he is averaging.
And Reeve isn't the only figure facing questions over what critics describe as a double standard. Sage Steele has also called attention to the broader debate, arguing that the same principles of fairness should be applied consistently. That criticism is resurfacing now because the conversation has expanded beyond one person or one incident. The challenge for Reeve is to clearly explain how her positions fit together. If protecting opportunities for women is central to her message, critics want to know where she draws the line and whether that standard remains consistent when the issue becomes more complicated.
Julie Tattard, I think is her name, or his name, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Trans since 2001, 6'3", averaging 20 in France's Ligue number 2. I can watch her in 2 minutes and say she would be great in the WNBA, or he would be great, whatever you want to call it. You think they'll ever do that? Think they'll pull the trigger on this woman? Guy?
That can ball, Dan. That can ball. I watched her highlights. That is a bad. Not only did she average 20 points, 20 rebounds. We're talking about a 20-20 guy. I mean, if the WNBA is inclusive, then this French all-star WNBA team has to sign him, her. And this is why I said I put in a franchise application, Dan. The Nashville Balls, my WNBA team, would be the greatest dynasty of all time. Most inclusive, too. We're only signing men who identify as women. Our slogan is one love, two balls, and we are going to absolutely just dominate.
And now the conversation is getting another twist with Julie Tarter, the 34-year-old French center being discussed after an extraordinary season. She's been credited with putting up eye-catching numbers, including around 21 points and 20 rebounds per game, along with a 30-rebound performance and multiple major individual honors. With that kind of dominant resume entering the discussion, the debate surrounding Cheryl Reeve's earlier comments suddenly feels much more complicated. The question now is whether those principles would be applied consistently if a player of Tarter's caliber entered the WNBA conversation.
Breaking news, y'all. This right here has to fucking stop. So this trend from France plays basketball against females, which this is a male. Scores about 21.7 rebounds, pretty good. But now she wants to play with the WNBA. And the crazy thing is that the WNBA coaches are out speaking about men playing the female sport. Like, they are afraid to speak their mind because they know they will get fired. But this is wrong. You cannot allow the man to play in the female sports. They will dominate.
Because many fans watching this debate unfold say they are no longer satisfied with simple talking points. They point to women who have spent years building their careers through college basketball, overseas leagues, relentless training, and countless practices just for the chance to compete for a WNBA roster spot. For many players, that journey can mean 4 years of college, additional seasons overseas, and eventually a training camp invitation with no guarantee of making the final roster. Supporters of that traditional pathway argue that these opportunities are hard-earned and limited, which is why questions about eligibility and competitive fairness have become so emotionally charged. At the heart of the debate is whether the league can expand inclusion while also preserving what players and fans see as a fair and meaningful path to competition.
I come from a space of inclusion, and the narrative that I think that is problematic is to suggest that number one, that transgender athletes are the biggest problem in women's sports. And I think this is what's bothersome, is that there's a faction of people in our country that are making this a massive issue. We have some issues. Number one, we need to protect trans kids. Every kid, to me, it's a human rights issue. Every kid has a right to sports, regardless of gender diverse, transgender. Every kid has the right to access. Now, what gets nuanced is, when you're beyond puberty, when you're an Olympic sport, when you have scholarships at stake, and that sort of thing. That's where I say that common sense people get together and you find common ground to find a way to be inclusive. The answer isn't no. It is not the case that we have, quote, biological men in girls' locker rooms. The way it's being phrased, the innuendo there that somehow transgender women are predators of some kind in the locker room. There's a lot of narrative that is problematic that we need to address.